Shalom Aleichem again, and welcome back to our Shir over here. Sunday morning Shir of Hilchos Kibud. Try to be around 9 minutes, and this could be the last Shir of the series of the halachos of Kibud. Mirz Hashem, we will try to start the halachos of Tzedakah and Ma'aser Ksafim, which was upon request, starting next week. So let's end off over here with a bang. A few interesting halachos that we will finalize over here in our Shir of Kibud. So there's a very big sugya, a famous sugya based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin and Daf Pei Daled. The Gemara talks over there about a child who wants to go and take out a koit. He wants to take out a thorn from a parent, or a child who needs to give a blood test to a parent or give a shot to a parent. And by doing so, many times it can happen that the child will let some blood come out, or they will give a parent a wound. Is this permissible in any way to do? Because many times a person can be faced with being in a situation where he's trying to help the parent, or especially if a son is a doctor and he wants to go and help the parent, but it's not so simple to do so when they're on their own, especially if the halacha is that he's not allowed to do something like this if he's going to go and cause any wound or any blood to be let. So what is the halacha l'maisa in these such cases? So the Shulchan Aruch in Yoredea, Reish Mem Aleph in Sif Gimel, based on this Gemara in Sanhedrin Pei Daled, he says over there that a person who his parent has a thorn which is stuck in their body, even if he's a doctor, he's not allowed to go and take it out, and he's not allowed to go and bloodlet, give any type of shot or blood test to a parent, because it's going to cause them to go and let blood out, or because it will give them a wound. Now what's interesting to point out is that this is a machlokas rishonim based on the Gemara. What would be the halacha if he's the only person around? If he's the only person around and there's no one else who can do it, is he also prohibited from doing it? So this is a big machlokes in the Rishonim. In the Shulchan Aruch we see that he paskind, like most of the Rishonim, the Rosh and the Rif and other Rishonim, and they were machmir, even if there's no one else around, he's not allowed to go and do this to the parent because it's going to cause the parent to go and bleed. Interestingly, the Rambam doesn't paskin like that. The Rambam says that if nobody else is around, and only the son is there, so then the son can do it, even if it will cause them to bleed. But the Shulchan Aruch is machmir. That's the way it's brought down, and like I said, in Yoredea, Reish Mem Aleph, and Sif Gimel. So, what is the halacha l'maisa for, let's say, somebody who is a Sephardi, who goes according to the psak of the Shulchan Aruch? So the halacha l'maisa is actually interesting, that it's a machloikas. Rabbi Yashiv Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha, he paskind that even though the Shulchan Aruch, he let out the shita of the Rambam, who was Mekel, but one should really, if they're a Sephardi especially, they should go according to the way he wrote it down, and not pass like the Rambam, but rather the other Rishonim, the Rif and the Rosh, and they should be machmir, that even if there is nobody else around, they can't go and do this to their parent, which means bloodletting, they're giving a shot, or anything similar that can cause them to bleed. Now, the Ben Ish Chai, he says, on the other hand, that no, the Rambam L'maisa brings down to be Mekel, and therefore if a Sephardi needs to be Mekel, he could be Mekel if there is nobody else around. The Ramah, over there in the continuation of the Sif, he brings down the sheet of the Rambam and other Rishonim that discuss what happens when nobody else is around, and he says L'halach L'maisa that it's true we have to be machmir not to go and cause the parent to bleed or to give them any wound. However, if nobody else is around and the son is the only one there to do it, so he could be Mekel. Over here, based on the Ramah's psak l'halacha l'maisa, came out a tremendous uproar in all the Sifrei HaPoskim. What does one do when we're faced with this shaila? What do I mean to say? It goes like this. When somebody is there by himself, around with his parents, and they need his help, let's say somebody's parent suffers from diabetes, and they have to go check their sugar, or they have to go prick their finger, or something like that. So what do? There's nobody else around, so every time we have to go and find somebody else, the neighbor to come into the house to do it, or a nurse or somebody else to do something like this, or maybe the son could be mekel. So what I mentioned, that there's a big uproar in the poskim, and that is that there are many things that even though there is somebody else around, meaning like this, there could be a neighbor, a nurse, somebody who's not a child, a brother, or something like that, of the person, of the parent, that could do this instead of them. However, there's certain things that could be considered as if nobody else is around. I'll give you an example. A very common case is that when a son, let's say, is a dentist. A son who's a dentist, he goes and he does all types of work in the mouth. And many times it happens that his parents need a certain treatment in the teeth that either is very expensive or they don't trust somebody else except for their son to do it, or they need the child to do it for whatever reason it could be. So even though there's many dentists and there are many professionals around, however, since this is what the parent needs, whether it's because the parent doesn't want to spend so much money, or whether it's because they think that nobody else can do as well as the job unless it's their son, then that's also considered as if nobody else is around. This is the opinion of many of the Gedolei HaPoskim, and they say that, if there's nobody else that can do this, whether it's because, like I said, money, or because they just feel more comfortable with the son doing it, then one can rely on that and be mekel. Although, like I mentioned, it is a machloikis, there are those that are machmir, and therefore some people go an extra step, and they say that if I have no choice, whether it's because I want to save money, whatever the case may be, and I want my son to go and do this treatment in my mouth, then I should actually make sure that the son, gets a mechila from me. I should go tell him that I'm mechil him, that even if something comes about, bleeding or whatever it is in my teeth, it's okay, I'm mechil you and it's okay. That's why some people go an extra step. This is the opinion, like I said, of many poskim, and one who is in this situation and he truly feels that he really can only trust his son to do it, or it's really a big expense, then he can go and be mekel. What happens when we have other types of shilas where not necessarily it costs any money, but there's nobody else around because there's just nobody else around. But the child is somebody who's there, and we needed the thing to be done. For example, like I said before, about checking the sugar. So sometimes the person's in a situation where he can't wait, and when he can't wait, so even if there's somebody else around, but it'll take time for them to get there, so obviously that's not considered that somebody else can go and help them. And therefore, every time a person is faced with a situation, whether or not they are allowed to do something which would cause the parent to bleed or to have a wound, they should always at least try to, first of all, ask the parent for mechila, ask them to go and be mechil them, and of course, if they can get the mechila, and of course if they have the other two heterim, like I mentioned before, whether it's costs a lot of money, v'chulei. There's also a question that comes up. Sometimes an elderly parent needs help to brush their teeth. Question came up to me whether or not a child is allowed to brush their teeth. Sometimes it can cause them to bleed. So the truth is, I spoke this over with my Rabbi, Rabbi Shlit, and he told me that not every time a person brushes his teeth does he see that there's blood that comes out. So therefore, it should be okay. Other poskim also said it's okay because they said that this is something which is for the toilets of the parent. And like I said before, not always is it something that a person can go easily get someone to do in his place. And if that's the case, a person can go and be mekel and brush his parents' teeth because it's something which is very important, even if they're elderly. Another question comes up whether or not a child is allowed to give a parent a haircut. Sometimes it can cause them to get certain cuts or whatever in their neck, and if they press too hard, it can cause them to bleed a little bit. So also the same idea, if it's something which a person doesn't see that it's for sure going to happen, it's not a secration, it's not for sure going to happen that they're going to bleed, so a person can be mekel, but of course you should ask for mechila beforehand, and you should try your hardest to avoid any of this. But someone who knows that every time he gives his parent a haircut, it always causes them to bleed, it's not so simple. Maybe you should give it to somebody else. I don't think a haircut today, I don't know, but if it's such a big expense, hopefully not. It shouldn't be such a big expense, and maybe they can go and do it by another place. Okay, so we're going to end up speaking, Mirz Hashem, in the next week about the halachas about tzedakah. One interesting thing, we'll just end off over here. The last thing is that a child who was asked, his father is a philanthropist, and somebody came over to him, wanted to know, where does your father live? And the child, he had a doubt whether or not he was allowed to reveal where his father lived, because he said to himself, maybe my father doesn't have the time, or he doesn't have the headspace right now to receive all these guests and all these people who are coming to ask for different tzedakahs, so he wasn't sure if he was allowed to go and tell them. So he didn't know what to do. He asked the Rav. And he came over to me and said, what should I do? And I told him, listen, it depends really. The Gemara in Eruchin, in Daf Tezvav, it speaks over there about people who come to your house to collect for tzedakah. So if there are people who the father is not going to be upset that they came, so there is no problem to go and tell them, no problem Lashon Hara, no problem with Kibud obviously, unless we know that the father is going to be upset. But if in a case a person knows that his father will be upset if the child directs and sends people to his house, then of course that should be avoided. That's not something they should do. So B'siyata L'Shema, we're going to continue. Like I said, next week. Thank you all for listening. Have a continuous great day. Kol Tov.